Hello and welcome to today's 5-in-1 Mayaani Talks. I'm Mega of Mayaani Jewellery and I created this beautiful space to share what I am learning about jewelry as I go along the beautiful journey of uncovering why it is I have made the jewelry choices I made in the past, what sort of jewelry choices I wish to make moving forward, why it is I love working with the materials I'm working with. So many topics that I have wanted to explore and motivated and inspired to explore. I thought I'd create this space to share my learning with you and, of course, to welcome you to share what you may know with me as well, so that together we can make more informed choices when it comes to our jewelry. Now, a lot of the focus on these wonderful videos is on Indian jewelry, in particular, traditional Indian jewelry and specifically Indian bridal and occasion jewelry, but the information that I share is still applicable across all forms of jewelry. And hopefully, it may get you thinking, if you are not already thinking about it, about jewelry in a slightly different way. Not better, not worse, just slightly different. Or it may, if anything, cement in place your existing views about jewelry and cement or give you that confidence and reassurance about the ideas that you already have formed when it comes to jewelry and the habits that you've already got in place when it comes to how you invest in jewelry as well. So who knows? It's a beautiful space. I feel and I welcome you to it. If you're new, if you've been here before, welcome back again in this beautiful new year of 2026. This is my first video. It has been an interesting wait to create these videos for you, as on the 8th of January, the village I live in unfortunately had no Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi got cut out because of a near-miss collision. I'm very thankful it was a near-miss collision. As far as I know, there were no casualties, no injuries, but what did happen was a telegraph pole was knocked down in the process. So this meant Wi-Fi went away and was literally only restored about 2 or 3 days ago. So it's been a little while, and as you can imagine, uploading these videos is challenging enough as it is, but more challenging when you have no Wi-Fi connection. So I am back, and on this first beautiful video, having last year, just before the end, having traveled the globe with you, shared with you how glass seed beads have woven their way into many different cultures across the planet without ever replacing the existing culture, heritage, stories, traditions within those places, which I think is a beautiful reason why I love working with glass seed beads. And you may not have known that, but yes, glass seed beads are essentially a part of our global human history. And I love that. There's no one particular society or civilization that can lay complete claim to glass seed beads, because they weren't invented in, or they didn't kind of come into existence in only one part of the world either. They came into existence across different civilizations at different times, independently of each other. So almost a beautiful celebration of our combined human desire to create with the first earliest forms of man-made glass-like material, which was faience, and then to develop that. It's almost like we all had this shared desire to do this separately, because this art form did develop, and the development of glass seed beads did take place separately in different parts of the world at different times. So yes, having traveled the globe with you, I thought, let us now look specifically at bead embroidery techniques within India. And of course, it's impossible to move forward in that discussion without first looking at the very first technique, which I'll explore with you today. And of course, it's always 5 facts. So fact number 1, pearl embellishment is the technique I'm going to share with you today. And this technique has a 400 to 500-year-old history with India. Now, whether this art form was present in India before this time, it's not entirely clear, but the records show about 400 to 500-year history of pearl embellishment in India, and it was a particularly prevalent technique and art form in the era of the Mughals, so the Mughal Empire era within India. And you would see pearl embellishment in all sorts of pieces, from jewelry to footwear to garments to ornaments for the home. Fact number 2, the beautiful thing about pearl embellishment, which did involve the use of real pearls, hence pearl embellishment. But these pearls were not used primarily because of the value associated with the pearls, which, yes, there is a material cost when it comes to using real pearls, and pearls do have a value in that sense. However, the pearls in pearl embellishment pieces were primarily used because of the meaning behind pearls, and pearls have long held the meanings of protection, prosperity, and purity when it comes to India. So this is the primary reason why pearls were used in pearl embellishment, to create all forms of adornment as well as ornamentation for the home. And The pearl embellishment pieces even featured in ceremonies as well. So they were part of rituals, spiritual rituals, and religious ceremonies as well. Fact number three. Now, when it comes to pearl embellishment, the technique itself is a very demanding technique in the sense that artisans place each individual pearl in a piece one by one. So each pearl is placed individually with a real focus and attention to details like the size of the pearls, the spacing between the pearls, and the alignment of these pearls in relation to each other as well. So this essentially is not an art form that by any means has not got any sort of physical endurance associated with it. There is a degree of physical endurance associated with this art form. The artisan has to maintain high levels of concentration for long periods of time to create pearl embellished pieces. And when creating these pieces, the reason for being so particular about how each pearl is placed, the size of each pearl, its alignment, is essentially because with pearl embellished pieces, the key goal was to create a visually a harmony and balance. So it was to create visual harmony and balance. And that was the primary reason why these pieces were invested in as well. So aside from the meaning behind pearls, which is why they were used in these pieces, the pieces were invested in because of the visual harmony and balance that was communicated through the designs that then materialized as artisans wove them to life. Fact number four, of course, pearls. You have probably noticed if you've held a pearl in your hand or you've seen them up close, worn by somebody, perhaps worn them yourself, they have this beautiful, soft, muted glow about them and they almost melt away into the skin. And with that, the beautiful thing about pearls is that rather than competing with the person who's wearing the pearls, which you can see in the case of a lot of very heavy metal jewelry, whether it's fake metal or precious metal, the metal jewelry can compete with the person who's wearing the jewelry, and so does jewelry that involves a heavy use of precious gemstones as well. In the case of these forms of jewelry, there can sometimes be a question that comes to your mind about whether the person's wearing the pieces or the pieces are wearing the person. And I specifically have experienced that when looking at Indian bridal magazines. I've got one to hand actually, like for example, the Asiana Bride magazine. I looked at this myself for my wedding day to get inspiration. But when you look at a lot of the images in those sorts of magazines, specifically when looking at Indian bridal, the pictures are so rich. There's so much detail in the garments and the jewelry, but sometimes there's almost too much detail because of the materials that are used. The materials that are used almost overshadow the person who's wearing these pieces. So that sometimes you may be faced with the question when looking at a picture of first of all, what did I notice first? Did I notice the person first, or did I notice the gown first that they're wearing, or the piece of jewelry they're wearing first, or their hairstyle? In which case, I would argue that when it comes to true luxury, the person should always be front and center. So you should always notice the person first. Those accessories that they're wearing, the clothing they're wearing, the way they've got their hair, should all simply enhance what is already present, what that person already brings by being themselves, the very beautiful essence and nature and person that they are right here in front of you. So if you ever find yourself looking at a magazine again, I encourage you to ask yourself, what have I noticed first? Was it actually the person or was it the pieces they're wearing? And if it was the pieces they're wearing, I would highly encourage you to question whether that is actually what luxury stands for and whether you would be happy wearing pieces that essentially make you an afterthought and make the pieces the first thing people notice and attend to and talk about. They don't talk about you per se. And I think for your big days, particularly your big days in your life, like your wedding days, anniversaries, any of these big milestone moments in your life, I would argue it's very important for you to be front and center because those events are going to be more meaningful to you. They're attached to you, not to your jewelry, to your clothes, to, yes, those are beautiful accessories and accents to have for the day. But essentially, this is about you and you stepping into a life changing moment. And that should not be forgotten. So if your pieces of luxury are in any way overshadowing you, I would question whether the luxury at all. And in the case of pearl embellishment, they wouldn't. So pearl embellishment is very much revered and admired by royalty, courtiers, nobility, for this reason that the pearls did not compete with the person wearing the pearls. The pearls were very much something that enhanced the individual themselves. And fact number five, pearl embellishment went on to inspire a number of beautiful bead embroidery techniques within India, of which I will share with you one beautiful technique in my next video. But for now, those are my five facts for today, which brings me to a little bit of an insight when it comes to my own personal relationship with pearls. I grew up at a time where pearls kind of flip-flopped. You may have noticed that yourself. Sometimes they're in fashion, sometimes they're considered old-fashioned. I didn't necessarily have growing up, and I still don't, and a particular affinity to pearls. And I've only ever worked with them as an artisan once. When I created my sister's Indian bridal jewelry set, which was incidentally the very first Indian bridal jewelry set I actually created, and the first time I returned to beading after becoming a mum twice. So I had two children under the age of 5, and I created this beautiful piece for my sister. She had an affinity to pearls, she loved them, and for that reason, I did invest in a small number of fresh grade A rice and potato pearls, very tiny pearls, because for me, again, the size is quite important. As I said, these artisans were very attentive to details like that. And for me, the larger the pearl is, I feel almost the more it competes in the design. I like working with tinier materials because I feel you can weave in a lot more intricacy, a lot more artistry within the pieces that you're creating, without creating artistry and interest in such a way that you now no longer notice the person wearing it. For example, an example of a piece that I've created, you can see there's a lot of intricate detail in this piece, but when I put it against myself, it's not competing with me so much as accentuating what already exists. So you still see my face first, but it almost is a little hint on the side of my face, like, ooh, and it just sort of makes my face pop a lot more than it would without it, for example. So yes, I used very tiny pearls, and I never invested in pearls again. I used up the few pearls that I had left over from my sister's wedding to create a few pieces because sustainability being important, I didn't want to just, of course, I wouldn't throw them away. So I used them up, but never invested in pearls again. And that's because pearls, whether they are actually cultured pearls or whether they are harvested pearls, either way, they have an environmental impact. When it comes to cultured pearls, there are toxins that make their way into aquatic marine ecosystems, causing damage there. And of course, when it comes to harvested pearls, the oyster itself is put at risk while it's harmed. It ends up being killed in the process of harvesting the pearls. So for me, as a sustainable individual, as a sustainable brand owner, as a sustainable artisan, I cannot consciously use pearls. However, I would encourage you to consider whether, if the essential essence, if the essence of pearl embellishment as a technique, as a traditional technique, if the essence lies in this attention to spacing, attention to sizing, attention to alignment, and the overall balance, visual balance, and harmony in a piece, and not so much on the actual material used, I would ask whether, to honor this art form and continue it forward, we should look to continue to use this art form, but evolve it by using materials which are more sustainable and are more eco conscious. And which materials would be a suitable replacement? Pearl seed beads. Pearl seed beads are seed beads created from glass, made to look like pearls. Of course, you may argue when you look at a real pearl and a false pearl, a seed pearl, you can tell the difference, and you probably can because there's a bit of a difference in the glow. However, in pieces of jewelry woven with the pearl embellishment technique, especially if you are looking to create beautifully artistic pieces, you're not looking to have big, giant, enormous pearls in this design that really shout in your face, then it would be not much of a sacrifice, I feel, artistically speaking, for you to swap out those real pearls for actual glass seed pearls, which allow you to move forward with a much lighter footprint in terms of the kind of harm or trail of destruction we leave behind us to pass on to the future generation. But also, I feel personally that when wearing pieces that are more sustainable, that are more respectful of our natural environment, whilst at the same time honoring our lineage and our heritage, I feel that when wearing those pieces, I almost feel as if there's a weight that's been lifted. I feel like I'm no longer carrying on with stories which I do not agree with, that don't fit into with my values and don't fit in with the values I want to pass on. And almost like, yes, it can sort of guilt free. It creates guilt free wear for me, guilt free luxury. So I welcome you to share your thoughts and your views and whether you feel that in to honor this beautiful technique and considering the beautiful techniques, the features associated with this beautiful technique are primarily focused on everything but the pearls, whether it's actually advisable for us to look to evolve this technique just in terms of swapping those real pearls or cultured pearls for materials that are much more sustainable. If you stayed with me this far, thank you very much for joining me today. I wish you a beautiful week ahead. Remember, because your jewelry should always be more than just an afterthought. And of course, please feel free to hit the like button, subscribe, or hit the notification bell to keep in touch with me. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back again soon. And bye for now.